something about the Charlie Kirk story doesn't sit right, and millions of people online can feel it. What was first reported as a straightforward tragedy quickly morphed into a maze of half-facts, conflicting witness accounts, and unanswered questions. The official version of events landed within hours, yet almost immediately, cracks began to show. Social media threads exploded with side-by-side photos, timelines that didn't match, and claims that key evidence was being kept out of public view. Even people who normally stay silent about politics started saying the same thing. Something's off here. The shockwave hit the commentary world just as fast. Joe Rogan, never shy about controversial subjects, told his audience he wasn't convinced everything added up. Within minutes, clips of that conversation were everywhere. Reddit, X, YouTube, Telegram, each platform spun its own theory. And by the next morning, the incident had shifted from breaking news to full-blown internet mystery. But what exactly made it feel so strange? It wasn't only the violence itself, it was the details that followed, the contradictions that refused to line up no matter how you looked at them. And that's where this story begins. In those gaps between fact and rumor, between what officials say happened and what millions of people think they saw. Because once you start pulling on one loose thread, the whole thing starts to unravel. Utah Valley University, early September 2025. A packed auditorium, a Q&A that should have been routine. Then chaos. Witnesses described confusion more than clarity, people running, phones recording, others frozen in disbelief. Within hours, headlines around the world identified a two-year-old suspect. The case, it seemed, was solved. But almost immediately, observers noticed how clean the narrative sounded. Too neat for something that had unfolded in seconds. Footage leaked online didn't fully match the official timeline. The crowd's reaction came before any sound of a weapon. A few frames were missing, and questions started pouring in. How did the shooter get into a secured event? Why were there no secondary camera angles from a university filled with surveillance? These weren't conspiracy questions at first, they were common sense ones. Yet every time people asked, the answers shifted. Statements were re-edited, new press releases replaced old ones, and confidence in the official story started to crumble. That growing unease set the stage for what came next, because when details stop making sense, people start looking elsewhere for truth.
The narrative is that this is his grandfather's rifle from World War I and doesn't have a serial code. Okay.
Interesting.
Okay. Why? Wait. Why are you using such an old gun? That's the other thing. They said that he took it apart and then put it back together again. Shut the fuck up. Do you know how much time it would take to do that if you were highly skilled?
According to reports, the alleged shooter used a restored antique rifle, supposedly a family heirloom from decades past. On paper, it sounded cinematic. A relic from another era used in a modern-day tragedy. But anyone familiar with firearms immediately called foul. Online experts pointed out that maintaining accuracy with such a weapon would be nearly impossible without serious modification. Enter Joe Rogan's now viral comment. He said what many were already thinking. Why would anyone choose a century-old gun for a precision attack? His disbelief resonated. The internet lit up with breakdown videos explaining why that rifle model couldn't physically perform as described. Gun enthusiasts uploaded slow-motion demos. Ballistics analysts joined live streams. And within days, the antique rifle detail became the biggest red flag in the case. That single inconsistency cracked the entire foundation of the narrative. Because if the weapon didn't make sense, what else might be wrong? And just as people started to digest that question, another detail surfaced, one even stranger than the weapon itself. That single inconsistency cracked the entire foundation of the narrative. Because if the weapon didn't make sense, what else might be wrong? And just as people started to digest that question, another detail surfaced, one even stranger than the weapon itself.
First of all, there was that one guy who was the decoy. All right, so you got this guy who's an older guy who starts yelling out. Didn't he take his pants down? He took his pants down. This guy was at 9/11. He was at the Boston bombings.
All the hits.
He called in a fake bomb at another place. And then he did this at this thing. Right after, so somehow or another, this guy has the state of mind that the moment someone gets shot, he yells out and says, I did it, and takes his pants down or something like that. I don't know exactly what he did. Then, ready for this? He gets arrested for child porn right away.
Right after this happened?
Oh, right away. He's in jail for child porn. Why is that? Well, now you can't interview.
Buried inside early witness reports was a name most outlets quietly stopped mentioning. An older man at the scene who reportedly shouted, I did it, before being detained. His bizarre outburst instantly drew attention, but soon references to him vanished from official updates. Internet sleuths, however, dug deeper and discovered that this same man had appeared near other unrelated national incidents years prior. Whether coincidence or not, the discovery reignited suspicion. Comment sections filled with people wondering how a single individual could keep showing up at the center of chaos. Some theorized he was simply unstable, craving attention. Others saw something darker, a distraction meant to steer eyes away from the real story. Then came the twist. He was reportedly arrested on unrelated digital content charges just days later, which effectively removed him from any public questioning. To Rogan's listeners, it sounded too convenient. One moment, he's the loudest person in the room. The next, he's unreachable. And with that, the theory of a decoy suspect was born.
Okay, you're saying something that's actually factually inaccurate,
Right.
according to the narrative. Now, let's be real clear. I don't necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird going on with world.
I almost texted you when the Charlie Kirk thing happened because my antennas went up about, they showed the photo of that kid, or the guy that they have, the 22-year-old,
Yeah.
whatever. And I was almost going to be like, dude.
This kid had a rifle with a scope. Now, here's where it gets weird. The first images of this rifle with a scope, I swear to God, it looks like he has a composite stock on it. Like it looks like a modern 30-06 rifle.
By the time Rogan revisited the topic on his podcast, the internet had already labeled it the weirdest case of the year. He didn't present a grand conspiracy, he just voiced what millions were thinking. This doesn't add up. His tone was skeptical, not sensational, yet every clip of him saying, there's a lot of weird shit going on went viral. Rogan pointed out how certain pieces of evidence appeared, disappeared, then reappeared in different form. He laughed at the notion of someone rebuilding an antique rifle in minutes, calling it movie logic. What struck people wasn't that he had answers. It was that he admitted nobody really did. Within hours, hashtags connected to his remarks trended worldwide. Commentators on both sides of the political aisle debated whether Rogan was exposing something real or just feeding the chaos. But before the argument could settle, another public figure entered the conversation, one who wasn't interested in asking questions quietly. Candace Owens didn't ease into the discussion, she detonated it. In a late-night live stream viewed by millions, she claimed that the narrative surrounding the shooting was built on lies. Her tone was fierce, emotional, and certain. Owen suggested that the accused shooter might have been framed and that deeper political forces were at play. She cited messages, timelines, and alleged inconsistencies in official statements. Most importantly, she referenced what she described as a major internal audit that Charlie Kirk had supposedly planned. An audit she believed could expose serious financial irregularities inside his organization. If true, she argued, that could explain why powerful people wanted him silent. Critics immediately pushed back, reminding audiences that none of her claims had been verified. Still, the damage, or the drama, was done. The idea of an internal audit created a brand new layer of intrigue. Because if Kirk had been about to open books nobody wanted opened, then maybe the story wasn't just about a shooter, it was about control. And that theory led directly to the next revelation. Rumors about an internal review inside Turning Point USA started spreading days before Kirk's death, but gained momentum only after Owens mentioned it. Leaked screenshots, anonymous emails, and supposed memos began circulating online. None were verified, yet they all pointed to one theme: money trails that didn't match donation records. According to speculation, Kirk had intended to restructure certain departments and track missing funds. Some said he was preparing to confront big donors. Others believed he was just tightening management. Either way, it painted a picture of tension building behind the scenes. The timing felt impossible to ignore. If a major audit really was about to drop, could someone have wanted it stopped? The question lingered because only days after the alleged memo surfaced, Kirk was gone. To viewers already skeptical of coincidences, that sequence of events sounded like a plotline rather than real life. And just as people were trying to process the possibility of internal politics, another curveball arrived, one tied to power, inheritance, and public image. In the wake of the tragedy, the organization needed new leadership fast. Kirk's wife stepped in as CEO, a move that was both logical and, to many online, suspicious. Within hours of the announcement, speculation took over comment sections. Was this transition planned? Was she chosen by him or by others behind the curtain? Some users combed through past interviews searching for clues. Old clips resurfaced where Kirk mentioned future leadership changes, fueling both sides of the debate. Supporters saw a grieving widow continuing her husband's mission. Skeptics saw a seamless power shift that happened too smoothly to be spontaneous. Then came viral videos dissecting her public appearances, how she spoke at the memorial, how calm she seemed during press events. Critics called it performative, others called that accusation cruel. Either way, it kept the story alive, and attention means power. Whether innocent or intentional, her rise became another piece of the puzzle. Proof, at least to internet detectives, that the Kirk case was far from over. And that's where the story stood when the next layer of speculation began to surface, one that would reach far beyond family or politics, straight into the world of billion-dollar influence. Weeks later, the trending tabs moved on. New scandals, new distractions. The world forgets fast, but beneath the surface something had shifted. People began questioning everything they saw. Algorithms were no longer trusted. Voices once amplified were now filtered, shadowed, controlled. In quiet corners of the web, archived videos of Kirk's last interviews started circulating again. His voice echoed like a digital ghost. If truth doesn't trend, does it still exist? It became a rallying cry. Forums turned into investigations. Coders tracked metadata trails that led back to hidden servers. What they found wasn't a smoking gun, it was something worse. Patterns of silence. Certain topics were algorithmically buried, while others were amplified beyond belief. Someone had decided what the world should care about. Maybe that's the real legacy of Charlie Kirk. Not the rumors or the chaos, but the realization that information, once free, had quietly become the most controlled product on Earth. And yet, one mystery remains. Who benefited most when Charlie Kirk was gone? Some say we'll never know. Others believe the clues are right there, hiding in plain sight, in our feeds, our headlines, our recommended for you tabs. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Maybe we were all part of the system that erased him. And that brings us to the real question. What do you believe? Was Charlie Kirk a victim of power, or just another player who lost control of his own game? Did the system silence him, or did the audience do it by feeding the outrage machine? Comment below with your thoughts. Do you think truth still has a place in today's internet? Or has the line between fact and fiction been erased for good? Because if this story taught us anything, it's that the next Charlie Kirk could already be trending, and none of us would even notice until it's too late.